Greg on the oil rig. I met this guy totally by accident on Instagram. He sent me a follow request and then he sent me a message. He said his name was Greg and that he was working on an oil rig in the Gulf of Mexico. I live in Oklahoma and always had a thing for roughneck men. In fact, my ex husband was a roughneck in the oil fields of Oklahoma. This guy said he saw my comment on the Oklahoma Sooners football game Instagram page, as I follow all the players in the team, and he loved my comment and that I love sports. He told me again that his name was Gregory, but he went by the name Greg. He said he was born and raised in Spain, but his parents suddenly passed away and he had to move to northern Texas to live with his uncle when he was just 14 years old. Then his uncle had become sick, and he had to care for his uncle until his uncle had recovered from a kidney disease. He then said when he was 20, he enrolled in school to become an oil rig operator. He told me that he'd been doing this for many years, and he said that he is now 40, and when I met him, I was 45. I'd been divorced for 3 years, and by this time I was ready to start dating again. And now I know people will ask, how could I fall for this since my ex husband also worked in oil fields? Well, my ex husband worked every day as a supervisor in the actual fields near our home. We actually had work approved housing through his job. This guy worked at sea. Totally different world, mind you. Greg told me he was divorced and that his wife couldn't handle and didn't want to be with him, and his career was too much for her, and he was gone a lot. I told him I understood that, as my ex husband was gone a lot too, but my ex husband also had wandering eyes and hands, which is why we broke up and ultimately led to our divorce. We had no kids. Greg said his wife cheated on him with his best friend too, and left him a single dad with a 12-year-old daughter named Tamara. He said his daughter stayed in a boarding school when he was away, and that he had stayed at sea for 10 weeks at a time, since he was a machine operator and a supervisor of other machine operators, and then he got to go home for a few weeks. We instantly started talking on WhatsApp. We exchanged numbers, and he had a number from Texas, so I had no doubt back then that he was real. I thought if he was some kind of scammer, he'd have a number from another country. I had no idea that these romance scammers could get numbers from the United States, and I learned this later on. We started flirting and chatting nightly. He said he would be in the Gulf for a few more weeks, about 6 or 7, I really can't remember now, and then he would come home and we would meet. Our conversations were very hot and steamy. He was a hunky guy, something that most roughnecks are because of the nature of their work. They have big muscles, big arms, and are generally big, tall men. Greg was no exception, or at least his photos were. He even sent me videos of himself in his room on the rig, and yes, some adult videos of himself too. I also sent him videos. We kept up this talking and flirting, and he told me he wanted to meet me as soon as he got home, and he would fly up to Oklahoma to see me. I had plans to pick him up in Oklahoma City, and we would spend maybe 2 weeks together before he had to go back on the rig. I talked to Greg for hours, both on the phone and on text. He would always send me videos of himself and photos of where he worked and in his room. He asked me if I would be a mother to his daughter, Tamara, and I told him of course, if we worked out, as I had no kids of my own. And I fell in love with him and listening to him talk. He had a thick accent, which I thought was Spanish at the time, but I learned differently in the end. Greg asked me for some iTunes cards early on in our relationship. He said he did not have access to his banking account on the rig, and the cards helped keep his connection going for us to talk. I had an Android phone, and I wasn't aware that during that time, those iTunes cards don't add time to a phone. I bought him probably $600 worth of these cards. He would ask me for $20 cards at first, and then it escalated to 50, then $100 cards. He was sending me so many videos that I thought the videos were using up all his data, and he explained that that's how it worked, and I didn't want to lose touch with him during this time, and we were making plans to meet after all. Then came our plans. He asked me if I could pay for his flight because he had no access to his account as there was some sort of issue with his bank card. He told me he would pay me back when we met, and I believed him because these guys make good money, so I had no doubt that he would have the funds to pay me back. He said his company had a special website where I could buy a ticket online at a discount. Greg sent me the website, and it was a special website for oil rig workers. It looked legit, so I had to enter his employee ID and name, and I said I was his wife on the form, and then it took me to a book flight selection, so I picked Galveston, Texas to Oklahoma City. The flight was only $90, which was a great deal, so I paid online through the site with my bank's debit card, and then it took me to another site with a voucher, which I took a photo of and then sent to Greg online. I was excited for us to meet. A few days before we were set to meet, I received an alert on my online mobile banking app that several transactions with thousands of dollars were going through on my card. It was to places like Amazon and online retailers, including a few high end Coach bag stores. I then received a text that a $2,400 charge was made online for an iPhone through a popular retailer. I had to go down to my bank and file a fraud alert. When I told Greg about this, he ended up blocking me. The bank took forever to get my money back into my account, and during that time, some of my personal bills and auto payments bounced. When I tried to call Greg on WhatsApp, some other man answered the phone and told me he has no idea who I am. But the man who answered the phone had a similar accent to Greg. This ruined my month, as I had auto payments bouncing here and there, and with all the late fees, it was a nightmare, and this so called boyfriend of mine was gone and vanished. I tried to call his number from another phone, and it went to an automated voicemail through an email service. I then told a friend of mine what happened, and she searched his pictures, and we found out they were stolen pictures of an adult film star, someone actually, I guess, pretty popular. Plus, we found the videos that Greg sent me, or whatever his real name is, all stolen from an adult website. I'll never know who he really was or what he really looked like now, but I know more about romance scammers, so I can only guess where he was really chatting to me from. Since this encounter, my Instagram has been filled with messages and follow requests from bodybuilder looking men, and even some people using the same photo that Greg used, but with new names. A hard lesson learned, and that's my story. I'm going to stick with meeting men in public places and stay away from the internet. The dating world online? No, thank you. We'd like to thank this lady for sharing her story. It goes to show anyone can fall for a romance scammer. Even if you know someone that works in the oil fields, you can still fall for a fake oil rig romance scammer. Always look for the red flags, and if someone asks you for videos of yourself that are adult in nature or asks you for iTunes cards, just block, because it's always going to be a scammer. And a lot of romance scammers are sending people to fake websites to buy plane tickets or pay for military leaves. In reality, those websites are just there to capture your credit card information and commit fraud. Never put your credit card information into a site you don't know. If you'd like to share your encounter, you can find me scammingscammers@gmail.com. Drop me an email, some screenshots, explain a little bit of what happened and what went on during your encounter, and I will be happy to narrate it into a video. Please give me a little bit of time to check your story and to narrate. I'm a little bit behind on stories right now, but I will narrate your story into a video as soon as possible. Until next time, stay safe.